Building a beastly blue line in the fantasy game is always a tricky task. Where do the top D-men fall in our latest ranking on today's episode?
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, my fantasy fanatics? Welcome back inside the lab to your 30-minute source for fantasy hockey, NHL breakdowns, and all of the inside bets that you need. Every single night, we're trying to bring it to you here on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my distinguished co-host, Mr. Steele, Rodin. On this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Shout out to the everydayers, holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Right now, you can find our episodes in the evening and a Saturday special coming in hot. Top 10 fantasy D-men. Steele and I are definitely going to have some differing of opinions, but I'll say this off the top, Mr. Rodin, before I turn it over to you. The main takeaway here is you want yourself a piece of a number of these blue liners. It's going to make your team succeed next season. I've got honorable mentions as well. 10 through 6 today, 5 through 1 tomorrow, and bets at the end of the episode. Over to you, my friend. Who slides in at the 10 spot? Because I'm ready to get heated already.
Look, yeah, there's many ways to look at this position. And like Flip said, we definitely have our strong opinions and difference of opinions when it comes to drafting these defensemen. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. But there's many ways to take that you can take away from this conversation and this episode, as well as obviously it depends on your fantasy formats. For the most part, we always do categorical formats. That's what we love to do. We love the peripheral stats. I love the peripheral stats. 100%. So again, it's a different way of looking at some of these defensemen right here.
We're looking cat leagues.
We're looking at cat leagues, but I still think it goes hand in hand with straight up fantasy points because they still chip in with hits, blocks, and all that stuff. And there was a lot of defensemen I left off the list. Thomas Harley, who I love, who you love, Dougie Hamilton, Roman Josi, Adam Fox doesn't make it for me as well. I think Jacob Chikrin is a very interesting name. I think you and I are going to have a very different list here, and that's why it's going to be a fun conversation. So for number 10 on my list, it's Victor Hedman. And I'm okay with that. At 35 years old, 66 points in 79 games, you know, the mileage that the Tampa Bay Lightning have put on all their star players, Point, Kucherov, Vasilevsky, Victor Hedman, I still think he deserves the respect and the significance of he contributes to this team. So 66 points in 79 games, a plus 18, 30 penalty minutes, which is like an all-time low for him. 133 blocks, 39 hits, 180 shots. You know he's coming in with the peripheral categories, an 8.3 shooting percentage as well. You know that the Tampa Bay Lightning have one of the best power play units in the game, top 5 on a regular basis here, as well as for Victor Hedman. Over the span of the last 4 years, he has only missed a handful of games. He's been very durable.
Great point.
As he's gotten older, I think you become aware of the wear and tear on your body and how it affects you. And even this postseason, I believe he was playing with a broken foot or something, and he still looks out there, even though they got dismantled by the Florida Panthers. So for me, I'm so comfortable with Victor Hedman at number 10. I believe on the Yahoo rankings, he actually did finish in the top 10, in that 10th position. So I'm putting him right back where he was. His preseason rank was 23. He finished 77. So we can kind of get a look at where this player should be getting drafted now. He's not in the top 3 rounds. He's not even maybe in the top 4 rounds, but you start to slide to the 5th or 6th. I think that's a perfect position for Victor Hedman. I'm comfortable enough to reach on him for the 4th, but you start to be aware at this age what he's contributing. Still top 10, but he's not in the first 3 rounds.
Maybe we're not going to differ on opinions as much as we think, because Hedman slides in at...
Trust me.
We will, but Hedman slides in at 10 for me. And let me get my honorable mentions out the way, because you might be shocked about some of the players that have hit my honorable mentions as well. Adam Fox, honorable mention. The peripherals don't do it for me, and I don't know what's going on with the New York Rangers, where Victor Hedman, you know what you're going to get with the Tampa Bay Lightning again. Once again, a team knocking on the door for the conference top spot, division top spot, and a postseason. So Adam Fox, Miro Heiskanen, not making the list this year, Steele. You brought me around on it, but let's be honest. It's very difficult to separate, I'd say, with defensemen especially, their impact on the team's ability to win every night and on
100%.
your fantasy team's ability to win. That's the hardest position for me to separate the two values. So Miro Heiskanen, Sergachev, Thomas Harley, Roman Josi, Josh Morrissey was on my list as well, but they all are really good fantasy options. Let's be honest. If you even got a couple of those guys on your blue line, you're probably in good shape, but they're not top 10, in my opinion. So Victor Hedman comes in at 10. You covered it nicely, so why don't I spit out my 9th pick? I believe I said I had Lane Hutson higher on this list, but I think given his relative unproven track record and him being a very young player, I don't think he can be ahead of some of these other players that really do bring a ton of categorical value. But this is a special player, Steele, and you can get at me if you want, but Lane Hutson comes in at number 9 for me. This is a player that has game-changing offensive ability, game-changing skating ability, and don't knock the peripherals either. 123 block shots for this kid. He's got tree trunks for legs, and he is a very good hockey player. 34 penalty minutes, 40 hits. Maybe the shots come up this season. That's a confidence thing. He was 20 years old this year, Steele. Lane Hutson, for me, I get that he's not on your list, but I have a feeling that given the quality of what we saw from this Montreal team down the stretch and punching a postseason ticket, I want a piece of what's going on with that young Montreal core. Demidov, Hutson, Suzuki, our boy Cole Caulfield, and Lane Hutson for me. I might be a little bit, but he comes in at 9 because the ceiling, you can't deny, is top 10 caliber in terms of offensive output.
100%. The ceiling's there. And I was even saying earlier, I believe, to either you or one of my friends back from my hometown, that I see a very similar aspect of his game with Quinn Hughes. And we're going to talk about Quinn Hughes on one of these 2 episodes. But, similar size, similar edge work, similar speed, the offensive ability and playmaking. I know he had a lot of secondary assists, but he's going to be an outstanding defenseman. He's an honorable mention for me. He's just outside the 10th spot in 11th or 12th. So
I appreciate that.
Someone dropped a comment, like going into next year that they projected him to have 85, 95 points. I think that's way too high going into the second year.
95 points sounds crazy.
It's too high. So I still project him to be around 65 to 75 on the high end.
And that would be great.
What I feel. And that would be great, along with him contributing and raising his shots on net, his blocks, his hits. That goes a long way as well. Number 9 on my list, it's Brandon Montour. And obviously, this is not a guy who's going to jump off the page offensively, but for me, it goes back to those peripherals. And I think as much as the Seattle Kraken struggled this year, there are some really good players to keep an eye on for. Shane Wright, Matty Beniers having a bounce-back season. Capo Caco after the trade that he had as well. Ellie Tolvanen. Jordan Eberle is a great veteran experienced guy. Jared McCann. So there are some bright spots on this team, and I think Brandon Montour brings it on the blue line, as well as Vince Dunn, of course. 81 games played this year, 41 points, 70 penalty minutes. He had 231 shots, 100 blocks, and 84 hits. The peripheral categories is what sets him into the top 10. So again, he had his career year 2 seasons ago of 73 points. That's never going to happen again. He's going to be a perennial 40 to 50 point guy. In my opinion, that's where I'm projecting him to be at. Plus all those peripherals, banger league beauty with the penalty minutes, the hits, the blocks, the shots on net. If he does get some power play one time over Vince Dunn, that just sets him even higher on my list. So I like Brandon Montour at number 9. And again, this is the different angles. I'm a huge peripheral guy. I love the blocks.
Totally respect that.
And those are the different angles to take. Flip has a different opinion. Not saying he's wrong. He could be right on many facets of this as well. But different angles to pick from. I'm a peripheral guy.
I think, no, and I totally am too, Steele, and that's what we're talking about today, but I would for sure take a player like Mo Seider over Brandon Montour all day of the week, and then again on Saturday. Mo Seider, 212 hits this year, 181 block shots. The Pims aren't there, and he's got a slightly lower point total, 46 points this season. But to me, once again, the age and the upside, I'm going to put Mo Seider in at 8 all day long over Montour, especially because I guess, and this is, again, nothing to fault either of us.
So you have Mo Seider at 8.
Yes, I do. I totally dislike what's going on with the Seattle Kraken. And I know the Detroit Red Wings aren't exactly got it all going on. Mo Seider, to me, is one of those guys that I think this season upcoming is that year for, and it's hard to say breakout, but I'm going to say where he really establishes himself offensively because he has all the gifts. I love this player, and maybe that's my own personal bias factoring in here. I think this guy deserves to be on the list, and I had him at 10. I had him at honorable mention. I've had him all over the place. He is an elite draft pick. He is a very intelligent player, and he went 6th overall for a reason. No disrespect at all to other players who don't go in the top 10 or even the first round. And that is not the be-all and end-all of anything in the fantasy game. This is just what I'm reading into, and especially your peripheral angle. I love Moritz Seider, and I think we're going to have a lot more to talk about around the break. An interesting list, and what I would say, Steele, we're in for a changing of the guard here. Hedmans, Yossi's, Erik Karlssons of the world. Are they still valuable? Yes, but their days are done, and the young guns are on the rise, and there's a number of them. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like playoff hockey, the energy, the rivalries, the nonstop action with the Cup playoffs heating up. There's no better time to see it live, and Game Time makes getting in on the action easy and affordable. Game Time gives you last-minute tickets, deals, and zone deals for deep discounts with panoramic views of your seat from your phone. Ticket prices even drop the closer you get to the opening faceoff. You'll find great deals for seats as low as $100 thanks to inclusive discounts on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a five-star review for your boys here. And look, I might love Moritz Seider better than you because he's higher on this list than me, for me. So
there you go.
I absolutely love this player, what he brings to the fantasy realm. And I think, and I'll get to it, but I think Steve Yzerman has completely wasted the first 4 years of his career so far. So we'll get to that.
Good point.
Talk about Steve when we talk about the Detroit Red Wings and Moritz Seider. Number 8 for me, I have Evan Bouchard, and he could definitely be probably higher on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's kind of hard not to factor in the liability that he brings in the defensive end as a defenseman. But when you look at what he does offensively, it just it counteracts every mistake that he makes out there. So leads the playoffs, of course, right now with 11 points as a defenseman. The last 4 years, he's only missed 2 games. So as well, a very durable defenseman there.
Yeah, good point.
Clear drop-off in points, but again, just a rough year for the Edmonton Oilers to begin with. But Evan Bouchard, 67 points, plus 14, 32 penalty minutes, 108 blocks, 31 hits, and 235 shots on net. First power play unit, with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, he's going to be getting all those opportunities that he can, and he's really the guy now. He's the guy on the blue line to bring that offensive step, like a Cale Makar, like a Quinn Hughes, like a Zach Werenski, all those guys who are now top defensemen for their teams and contributing on high ends of the offensive side of things as a defenseman. So for me, Bouchard comes in at number 8, and I, again, no hate whatsoever if he's higher on your list, because he definitely could be.
He is higher on my list, Steele, but you're making valid points. And I think also what we need to remember is exactly what I just said. Fantasy-wise, Evan Bouchard's a stud. Is he frustrating in terms of sometimes letting his team down with making some very, I feel like this guy's hockey IQ, considering his offensive ability.
Wait, what hockey IQ?
Very,
he doesn't have any.
Yeah, very not in balance. So for food for thought, by the way, and again, with this list, the 1 through 5 is pretty solid, I would say. The rest of these guys, 6 through 15, and food for thought, NHL.com, their last ranking of the top 50 fantasy D-men. Number 10, tease to my next guy, Mackenzie Weegar at 10, Dougie Hamilton at 9, Jake Sanderson at 8, Evan Bouchard at 7, Moritz Seider at 6, Lane Hutson at 5, Victor Hedman at 4, which I think is a little bit of a slip. That's and then everyone knows the top 3. And we'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode. Just wanted to throw that out there for food for thought.
We'll talk about it today.
And I like here we go. You knew that I was going to get that soundbite in there one time, Steele. But this one's for you. Mackenzie Weegar is a player that I think doesn't get nearly enough credit. And maybe it's because he plays out west and we're an East Coast bunch over here.
The unsung hero.
He's been bringing very solid peripheral numbers over his entire career and really stepped up the offensive numbers, and I don't know what else you need to know. By the way, the Calgary Flames are a very good young team. Dustin Wolf, Coronado, Nas, the back end very solid and balanced, and he is a big reason why. So I really like this player, Steele. You've turned me on to him. I know he's been on your team multiple times, so your flowers are coming your way, as I like to do. 47 points this year, 223 hits, 192 block shots. And we thought, Steele, a guy who went from 101 shots a couple of years ago to 203, maybe that wasn't going to be repeated. How about 184 shots this season? Mackenzie Weegar comes in at number 7 on my list. A very good all-around defenseman.
Oh, I'm loving this talk right now. I'm loving what you're saying, what you're preaching right now, because he's higher on my list, and I'll be talking about him
I had a feeling.
He's coming in the top 5 for me. This is where things get dicey. This is where you're probably going to start hating me. This is where we're going to butt heads, and it's going down south. Number 7 on my list, it's Quinn Hughes. It's Quinn Hughes comes in at number 7. He doesn't crack the top 5. He doesn't crack the top 3. And here's my reasoning why. I understand he dealt with injury this past year. Quinn Hughes only played 68 games, still had 76 points. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Who does he have to work with this year?
It's a valid
Elias
point.
Pettersson, who has
valid
struggled
point.
the last 2 seasons. Jake DeBrusk, Niels Hoglander, Pius Suter.
Hey.
He ain't having Brock Besser anymore. Kiefer Sherwood, Dakota Joshua. And I'm not trying to disrespect these guys, but they're not in the top 6.
I got
also, on the blue line. Who's on the blue line? Philip Roenick, who's had trouble with staying healthy recently. And Marcus Pettersson, who's not an offensive-minded guy. On top of that, doesn't get blocks, doesn't get hits. And for my records, hasn't had over 200 shots on net. He had 192 last year. The shots on net are great, but he has no one to play with next year. And it all depends on what happens, what Jim Rutherford does in the offseason and who he can bring in. But I don't see him being a top 5 defenseman. That's personal opinion. I don't think. Again, I'm a big peripheral guy. He doesn't bring those blocks and hits and penalty minutes and plus minuses last year. I think he's going to struggle with the team that he is surrounded with, and I can't wait till he ends up in New Jersey.
There's another good point, and I can't. How could I possibly come on here and disagree with your takes on what is going on in Vancouver? Because it stinks, it reeks, and them putting in a guy in Adam Foote, that has, he knows what he's talking about. He's a Stanley Cup champion, and he's, in the mix for a job for a reason, but it smacks of desperation that you're doing this as one of these ditch efforts to get Quinn Hughes to stay. So from that angle, I totally agree with you. And that is a bit of a risk angle, but I'm also going to say that when a player scores 92 points in 82 games from the blue line and is as skilled as he is offensively, I think he really, truly does deserve to still be in the top 5. Top 3, I would disagree with you a little bit more, but he still cracks the third spot on my list. And look, 68 points or 68 games last year, he was still able to put up 76 points. And I guess what I'm trying to say is here, if the Vancouver Canucks are even a little bit better than what you're trying to depict, he's easily in the 80-point realm, and those D-men don't come around. And even with all the peripherals, if you balance your team right and you have a Quinn Hughes, you're taking your team to the top. So let's talk about it.
I think even with 80 points, he doesn't get into the top 5 as a fantasy hockey defenseman at the end of the regular season. But we can continue this conversation. Sure. We can continue this conversation after the break. We still have to get to our number 6 guy. Stay tuned in for Saturday's special episode where we break down the top 5 fantasy hockey defensemen going into next season. You want to write this down, circle these names when you do your draft in September. All of that plus bets coming up after the break. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button. Leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steele Rodin. And let's wrap up the Quinn Hughes conversation because I know you have some really good points. And again, what he did this year in the 68 games, it's very impressive. And especially with all the drama around JT Miller and Elias Pettersson not really having a sound D pairing on his left side. It's all understandable, and I get it. But for me, again, even with the point production that he brings, I'm nervous and scared for this Canucks organization. With losing Brock Besser, losing JT Miller, not knowing what Elias Pettersson is going to bring on a nightly basis or on a yearly basis now, it's terrifying.
It is. And just also remember that power play value that he brings. He's a power 100%. Play specialist. So there are some
power play might be bad with the top 6 they have right now.
Yeah, no, it's been a hot mess for the Vancouver Canucks. There's no doubt. He is also only 25 years old. So he's, just really entering his prime. So that's also an angle to consider. Number 6. And I know he's slightly higher on your list, and very hard for me to put the Lane Hutsons and Jake Sandersons of the world on this list for my personal allegiances. But man, do the Ottawa Senators have their number 1 cornerstone defenseman for a long time to come. He proved it at the Four Nations deal. He proved it in the postseason. He proved it during the regular season. And I can't fault you at all for having in your top 5. I want a piece of Jake Sanderson real bad this year. Because say what you will about the Ottawa Senators in this last postseason, that's going to be a team that's out for blood to start next year. They're a little bit more together, another year of experience, and the core is a beautiful one, in my opinion, for fantasy value at least. So Jake Sanderson comes in at 5 on my list, 57 points, 195 shots on net, 163 blocked shots, 12 penalty minutes, not the best, 38 hits, not the best, but I think 57 points would be my basement for what I expect his point average to be. I could see 60, I could see 65, I could see 70, and I think it's only on the rise.
I think so too, and he does make it into the top 5 for me. I'm going to break that all down tomorrow, but you had some really excellent points there in what he does. Also 30 points on the power play as well. So the Senators power play, special teams was really good this year. Yeah. Look, I'm not going to butter his biscuit as much as those Sen Central guys do.
Almost lost my juice there.
You know how it goes for them. They really love to give it out. But
hey, shout out to the boys at Sen Central.
Shout out to the boys on Sen Central. We appreciate it. We appreciate it over here.
Let's go with that.
He makes the top 5. Number 6 for me is Moritz Seider. I think exactly what Flip, what he preached is why I have him at this position. I think, again, it's funny to me because Steve Yzerman to me has wasted this guy's first 4 years in the National Hockey League alongside Lucas Raymond, along the entire tenure that Dylan Larkin's been with the Detroit Red Wings, Alex DeBrincat being there now. There's so many problems with this team. I don't even know where to start. The bottom 4 D pairing is absolutely garbage. The bottom 6 group has no significance to this organization whatsoever. They really bring nothing for what they brought them in to do. But when I look at Moritz Seider, with everything that he has to deal with, this guy hasn't missed a single game since he's entered the NHL. All 82 games have been played for the last 4 years.
Great point.
He's been a very consistent 40 to 50 point player, which I still think that's not even close to his ceiling.
I agree.
Shots on goal on average 156. I still think that's not even what his ceiling could be as well. The blocks, the hits, it's like I drool, I foam at the mouth seeing what he does with this. 181 blocks, 212 hits on a consistent basis this year. Again, you get some more if they can get a stronger power play, which he still had 24 power play points this year, on top of adding some more depth to the bottom 6. I think the ceiling is so high for this kid, and I love what he brings to the fantasy hockey realm. So I have him at number 6. I understand why you had him at number 8 or at number 7. But I love this kid a lot and what he does peripherally. You know that about me.
100%. Yo, wait, you like peripherals? No, I'm kidding.
I do like the peripherals.
At the end of the day, I might not love your list, but I love the points that you're making. The top 5 is intriguing for me, and I can't wait to get to it. Changing of the guard coming on the blue line. So
really
try and get a piece of it while you can. The Toronto Maple Leafs head into Sunrise, Florida tonight. I don't know what you're feeling, Steele. I know you got bets ready. The only bet that I was ready to throw down is I have a feeling Matt Tkachuk is going to really bother me tonight. And he has been effective, but he hasn't exactly been all over the score sheet to what I expected him to be. So what I would say is I'm going to probably lean toward a Matthew Tkachuk grind show. So I'd be taking some player props on him. Otherwise, I feel sick to my stomach, and I'm going to turn it over to you, who clearly has more cojones than me, because that would be the only bet that I have. I'm just hoping and praying, pal, and trying not to drink too much.
Yeah, I'm going with the guys that have been the best players for the Maple Leafs all playoffs long. So for number 1, Matthew Knies, anytime goal. I think he's parking himself right in front of Bobrovsky, and he's going to be banging away at rebounds and making it very uncomfortable for him to see pucks and to move laterally and comfortably like he does so well when he's at his best. So Matthew Knies, anytime goal. Nylander, anytime assist as well. I could see both of those hitting on a power play in some sort of fashion like that. I'm also going to take the over 5.5 in this matchup. It really does scream over 5.5 to me based on how we've seen the Maple Leafs play. Plus, if the offensive group does step out for the Maple Leafs, then I could see it going over 5.5 in that facet. Also I agree with you. Take the Matthew Tkachuk 3+ shots, Sam Reinhart 3+ shots. I think those two guys are going to be very significant players for the Florida Panthers in Game 6.
Absolutely love the Sam Reinhart prop. I talked about this at length on the solo episode yesterday. I honestly, Steele, the narratives are exhausted. You know, everything's been covered with this Toronto Maple Leafs team. I have not, honestly, and I'm not trying to be negative or even be, a hater. I just have nothing left to say. I need to see them do something on the ice. You lose 2-0 in Game 4. That's whatever. It's bad. You come out and you do what you did in Game 5. Really poor decision-making, bad hockey plays, lazy, looking disinterested.
We're going to have a fun conversation depending on how this goes. So
this is the Stanley Cup champion, Steele. This is Paul Maurice's club. We know this, and we're sitting thousands of miles away. And I'm not trying to put this on Craig Berube for not preparing the team. But what are these guys thinking? And you know what? That's enough for tonight. We'll get there tomorrow or whenever. Let's just say go Leafs go, but I have a very bad feeling.
I don't like you having a bad feeling, but we're going to try to switch that up. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. From your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steele Rodin, we wish you good luck with your bets tonight. Good luck with your favorite team still in the postseason, and we shall see you back here again for a Saturday special.
Moritz Seider, baby.